how to scale to the West. Is it still a market? Is it still an opportunity? So therefore, I'm going to call to the stage, by order, Carolina Rendeiro, our honorary consul in Miami for Portugal. Rodrigo Coutinho Out Systems. There you go again. You could have stayed seated almost. I will also call Diogo Monica from Anchorage Digital. Welcome, Diogo. And I will call Madam Ambassador Elise Racico, Ambassador of Canada in Portugal. Feel free to sit. And Pedro Silveira from ICEP will be moderating and contributing as well with a few information about ICEP and how it can help.
So good morning, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here. I salute our guests here. And before entering the part of the questions that I prepared for the panel, I want to briefly explain to you what ICEP is, because I think it's really important regarding the subject of our panel today. So ICEP is part of the Ministry of Economy. We are an agency that has two main objectives: to promote foreign direct investment to Portugal. We have a team specially dedicated to that. Usually we focus on big companies and big projects from abroad to our country. And we also have a part that deals with the promotion of internationalization of Portuguese companies. So we have a team that we call Internationalization Department that dedicates to promoting our companies abroad, and it is done always with the role of the key account managers. So it's important for me to explain briefly what the key account manager means, because he is the one that has the obligation to understand what the company does, to understand what the phase in which the company is in the internationalization strategy, so that he can suggest initiatives the company may have abroad in order to expand to other markets. This expansion, the other markets that we are speaking about, we are all over the world. So ICEP has delegations in more than 50 different places, and our delegates, they do mainly two things. They promote big companies, big investments from those markets to Portugal, and they support our companies going into those markets, exporting or even investing, opening an office in those markets. We are very business oriented, so our goal is always to bring more business to the companies that deal with us. And we hope, or at least I hope, that today you will be interested in getting in touch with us so that we can start working together a way of helping you, of supporting you going into other markets. We have a team specially dedicated to that. We are more than 40 key account managers, and we always look forward to have more companies in our portfolio. So very briefly, this is what ICEP does. And I will start by asking questions to our guests. So Ambassador Racico, thank you for being here. It's a pleasure to meet you.
A pleasure.
And regarding this theme, what do you think are the most promising opportunities for European companies, startups, into the Americas, in this case more to Canada, of course?
Of course. Well, thank you so much for having me. Such a pleasure to be here. We always work really closely with ICEP and with your representatives in Canada that were really dynamic, so such a pleasure to be here. Well, I'd say it's a good moment for Canada, especially in the AI business. And I'd say, why now and why Canada? Well, why now? Maybe I'll just open up a little bit, and this is, I guess, my day today as an ambassador, but the geopolitics and the economics of today, I think, makes a really good case for Canada and for businesses to want to go in Canada. And why is that? Well, there's different elements, but I'll start by saying energy is a complicated topic these days, but I think Canada has a lot to offer there, and that's really important if you want to have the capacity to build the kind of infrastructure that we need to build AI. So clean, cheap, abundant energy, we have a lot of that. We have also a lot of land, so a lot of possibilities for big data center. I'd say it's usually quite cold, so that also that also helps for the kind of computers that are needed. And I'd say, and maybe that's in link with some of the comments on the earlier panel, but also we have a lot of talent. And I think at a time where the world is increasingly closing in on itself, where countries are kind of building walls around themselves and are becoming more restrictive in terms of entry and immigration, but also in terms of tariffs and other things. I think Canada remains a really open place where talent is welcome, and that proof is in the pudding, if I say. I mean, we have a really diverse and capable talent pool in Canada around those topics, but also I'd say the market access, again, is a really important piece. We don't have a huge amount of people to train big language models on, but we have access to 1.5 billion people in terms of market, so that's pretty significant. And I think there's also a cultural element to this thing. I firmly believe, working around themes like innovation for quite some time, that it's always better to be in an open and democratic society if you want science and innovation to thrive, because if there are preconceived idea behind what it should look like, that really limits what the capacities are. At the same time, in Canada, we have a long history, I think, in the relatively short history of artificial intelligence, of really minds and talents that have been working on that. And so we're looking at accelerating, but at the same time safeguarding certain elements with ethical questions. And I think, not to put bureaucracy, I know in the last panel there was a lot of questions on that, but just to make it into something that is purposeful, that will serve, not only the economic imperatives, but human beings. And finally, I'd say we're really strong on defensive cybersecurity in Canada, and so that is another element. I think in hybrid warfare that we see more and more, if you want to have the kind of infrastructure that is needed to build tomorrow's economy, you also need to have the capacity to defend those elements. So maybe just in a nutshell to start.
Okay, thank you very much. And our friend Carolina Rendeiro, our honorary consul in Miami, same question. What do you think are the most promising opportunities for startups from Europe into USA in this Trump administration? Yeah.
Well, the United States right now on immigration is a little testy, right? So you do have to be creative as always. But there is a tremendous opportunity. And then not only is there an opportunity, I think the talent that's coming out of Portugal, out of Europe as a whole, is a huge plus for the United States. And then when you look at Miami, we are known as the capital of Latin America. So you're looking not only at Miami and the United States, you're looking at the hemisphere as a whole, including Canada, of course, because we have so many Canadians that were there. Some of them are no longer there. But definitely when you're looking at Miami as a whole, we had San Francisco investors move into Miami over the last 4 or 5 years. That's been a huge impact in Miami on every level you can think of. Then when you're looking at the tech, every university right now has its own startup community as well. And they're encouraging exchange of students, exchange of know-how, definitely soft power. And then when you're looking at Miami connected to Brazil, Argentina, Uruguay, you name it, they're all there. In Miami, we have right now 28 consul generals, 28, all right? So you can see that we are expanding quite a bit. We're seeing countries from Africa coming in now as well, from Angola, Cabo Verde, to do on this international, definitely more on the startup community, especially Cabo Verde. And when you're looking now at what language is spoken, well, it is the universal language. First you learn Spanish in Miami, then you learn English, okay? So, but now it's a community which eMerge Americas, which is our tech conference, which started in 2013, and I had the privilege of being the Vice President of Operations for the international sector for eMerge. We brought in 420 startups in that first year. And those have now grown into major corporations, not only in the United States, but also in their own countries.
Okay, thank you very much. Just to add to what I said, in the Americas side, so to speak, the other side of the Atlantic, ICEP has offices in Canada, in Toronto. In the United States, we have 3 in New York, Chicago, and San Francisco.
Right.
We don't have one in Miami yet.
Exactly. We're praying.
We can talk about it. And we also have an office in Mexico and in Brazil, of course.
Yep.
And now coming to Diogo, what cultural or market mistakes do you most frequently see European companies making when entering the United States?
So many mistakes. Okay, let's start from the top. The first and biggest mistake, specifically Portuguese entrepreneurs do, but European entrepreneurs in general do, is they start in their local markets. Even if you win 100% of Portugal, I will not invest in your company. That is not big enough. And the biggest mistake that they do is by building a product to a specific culture into a specific market, they build the wrong product. They think they're going to be able to scale whatever they built locally, internationally, but they don't. It never actually works that way. So if you want a successful company, you have to go to the largest market you can find. Where's the largest market in the world? It's definitely the United States of America. Right now, 80% of the venture capital that is being raised in the world is raised in the US. 20% is the rest of the world. Europe is totally irrelevant. Less than 10% of the venture capital that is being invested in Europe. And by the way, in terms of AI, the numbers are even more horrible. I want to celebrate, like you want to celebrate, the European company that this week raised $1 billion for the AI company. However, last month, OpenAI raised 110. And so what are we talking about in terms of magnitude and dimension? There are 3 jobs as a CEO that you need to do. You have to fundraise and can't run out of money. The United States is better for that, has all the money. Number 2, you actually have to hire the best possible talent. We have a lot of talent, but nobody knows scale. Nobody actually has built the things that you need to build. So the United States has the most talent. And number 3, you have actually to set a coherent vision and go where the clients are. And where are your clients? They're certainly not in your local markets. So those are the 3 biggest mistakes, which is what makes a lot of companies not succeed. And then finally, this is a personal pet peeve, but please do not incorporate in Portugal. Incorporate a Delaware C Corp and then have a local company, because if you incorporate in Portugal, American angels can't invest in your companies, because the United States is great at trying not to get Americans to put money outside of America. So there's all sorts of compliance nonsense that we have to do if we have to invest in a European company. So please don't do it. Make it easy for us, make a Delaware C Corp, and then actually have the Portuguese company under it, and you'll have a lot more American angels and a lot more American venture capital. You will thank me later.
Thank you. Rodrigo, the same question to you. What do you think are the biggest mistakes that are being done by companies from Europe that want to go to US and Canada?
Okay, I can actually talk about our mistakes. OutSystems started in the US in 2006. Our strategy was to send one guy. We gave him a set of car keys, put him in California, and told him go and sell. Luisa was actually there also. And what we found was a couple of important things. One of them is that the way you sell in Europe is completely different from the way you sell in the US. So we have this rather complex product that does a bunch of things. And in Europe, like in Portugal, in Belgium, you can just ask people to go out to lunch with you, and you have 2 hours to explain what you do. This is amazing, because we have such a huge product. We can tell about all the little things that we do amazingly. Not in the US. The attention span is much smaller. They would get totally lost in our explanation of the product, because they're used to buying small products to fix a specific thing, not to buy a product that's strategic and solves everything. And what this required was that we completely changed the way we sold the product. So at that time, we actually hired some talent from the US, a new CMO, amazing guy from Texas. And the first thing he did was completely change the message so that we could boil down everything the platform does in 5 bullet points. Yep. And even that was too many bullet points, but compared to what we had, it was already amazing. I agree with the part of the talent. And don't get me wrong, we have amazing talent in Europe. We have amazing heads in Europe, but when you start thinking about scale, that knowledge is mostly in the US, because they had the experience. Because anything you do, the smallest business in the US is a big business. Even if you sell a particular piece of plastic that's only used for lavatories, suddenly that sells to the entire country and it's a big business. So there's a lot of experience in scaling. And so I gave the example of the CMO, but also in terms of our engineering team, getting that talent was super important. And you see that even in Miami, for instance. So it's funny. We have a big event where we invite customers and prospects to come and look at the new things that we are doing, and we did it in Miami last year, and it was a huge success. And at the end of the event, to celebrate, we went out, and I went to this bar, and I was wearing the T-shirt from the event that says "The future is agentic," and the bouncer at the bar was like, "Are you talking about AI agents?" And I was like, "Yes, I am." "Have you seen the new release from Google? They just released anti-gravity." And suddenly, I was having a conversation with the bouncer in Miami about AI. So I think that really shows the amazing interest there is in the whole country about these new technologies and this curiosity about these new technologies. So it's very cool.
But don't worry, the European Union has protected us from AI. AI does not come to Europe, so do not worry. You don't have to worry about AI.
Oh, thank you very much. And Carolina, which strategic partners or programs in the US accelerate the entry of foreign startups?
I didn't understand the question.
Which strategic partners and programs accelerate that our companies in Europe may benefit from?
So we're seeing more, what's coming into Miami is the healthcare sector. We're seeing a lot of that, okay? AI, of course, plays into anything and everything, but between fintech and healthcare, those are our two biggest ones in Miami, as you can see even on the investment side of who's funding and who's down there. Those are our two big ones. Now, that's also being pushed out into the Americas. As we well know, and we're getting the same. What happens in Miami, as all of you are well aware of, the companies that are good startups in Colombia in these same sectors are coming up. Colombia, Brazil, especially Chile, another good one for us. They're coming in and they're forming strategic groups. They're forming either a partnership. Some of this is coming in on public-private now, partnerships as well. Depends on, because of how the health sector is happening in, I'll say, Miami-Dade County, where we have 3 big hospital systems that are funded by the government, okay? Local government as well. That plays a big part in this. And now we're seeing these same healthcare sectors operating in Colombia, in Chile, in Brazil. So I think that's where our 3 focuses are right now.
Okay. Okay.
What is the stat? I think the stat is only 35% of Miami residents speak English.
Oh,
Only
exactly.
35%.
Exactly.
So less than half speak English.
Yeah.
That's.
Oh, you go to the store, and it's like, oye, cue me. Okay? That's our Cuban way of saying, excuse me, and everybody gets into the spirit of it.
That's right.
But it was a huge influence of the Cubans in the 50s. So.
Okay, thank you. And to Ambassador Elise, how can a startup quickly determine if an American market is viable for their activity, for their business?
Sorry, I didn't.
How can a startup quickly determine if an American market
within the Americas,
is viable for their business?
Well, I think it depends on the business. It depends also on what their objectives are. If I look at Canada specifically, some of the reasons that would make sense for a company is also like the cross sector. I think you were mentioning healthcare, but in Canada, more than 50% of mining companies around the world are listed in Toronto, for instance. So if there is a product that's associated with that sector specifically, as an example, that would probably be a good way to determine that it's a good market to be in. I think it's also a matter of what the company is trying to do. Is it just sales, or is it attracting capital? Is it developing products? Is it having access to government support and talent? All of those things are different. If it's also being able to access not just one market, but global markets, it also is a different question. So I think it depends on the model of each company, but I think if I'm looking at Canada specifically, we have a lot of specific sectors. I'd say aerospace and defense increasingly is one of them. mining and energy is another one. Most of the energy, for example, that is exported to the US comes from Canada. People sometimes think it's Saudi Arabia, and in the news these days, maybe they would think it comes from the Strait of Hormuz, but it comes from Canada. And we do have a lot of clean energy as well, and so on and so forth. So it really depends, I think, what the company is looking at. If it's for, like I said, having access to an increasingly global pool of talent or a global market, I'd say, Canada makes a lot of sense.
Okay, thank you. Diogo, do you want to add something in terms of the United States? How can a startup quickly determine if an American market, in this case the US, is viable for the product, for the business?
It's pretty easy. What problem are you selling, and are most of the buyers in the US? And then I'm sorry, but I don't care how hard it is for you to get there. You have to get there.
Yep.
It's the largest market for your company. You either want it to be big or you want it to fail. You choose. It's as simple as that.
I can maybe add something on that because I worked on an SME program that I built for the Canadian government, and a lot of companies thought that going to the US was sometimes the easiest thing because their clients were there and so on and so forth. But sometimes growing in that market was really hard because the competition is really tough. So I think it's also, are you at the right stage where you can actually get that market, or would you maybe look at a smaller piece of, if it's the American market, let's say Florida, for instance, because there's a lot of sub-markets also within the United States. And so I'd say it's about the buyers, but it's also a matter of finding, are you at the right stage to get this huge market ready for, are you ready for that, or do you have...
I would always invert these things because the main thing is that you can always succeed and you can always be a big fish in a very small pond. Always. You find a puddle, and you're going to be the king of the puddle. It's like a little puddle. It's like one by one, and you're the king of that puddle. Congratulations. You've achieved nothing. So you have to go to the largest markets that you can find, and you have to actually go to where the competition is. Because if you can work in the most competitive market in the world, it actually is working. And somebody from the most competitive market in the world is not going to come to eat your lunch later, which, by the way, invariably they always do. And we've seen these companies doing tremendous expansion internationally, and when the winner comes, in Uber, et cetera, they come to the local market and always dominate. Where are our local Uber players? They don't exist. Uber is a dominant player, and it started in San Francisco because the scale, the knowledge, the experience, the capital, all these things make them so much better. So my advice is always, yes, it's hard. Yes, that's why one of the founders minimum needs to be in the market where your clients are. And there's, by the way, companies for which your biggest clients are not in the US. Fine. There's things for which Canada is the place for you to go. There's places for which Europe, maybe it's your market. Maybe Australia is actually the first or second largest market for your specific product. By all means, I totally recognize that. The advice as a generic advice is you have to go where the biggest market is, one or two, and there's no third best. So think about it that way. And then you have to do whatever it takes. The founders have to move, all the sales team needs to be there, all the engineering teams to be there. I don't care if you have a girlfriend in Portugal. I don't care. Do you want to succeed or not? I don't care if you're going to miss the bacalhau. Do you want to succeed or not? So those are the questions that people really need to ask themselves is, what is the largest market? Where's the most competitive that I can actually go and win, and then go and win it? Otherwise, you can run a small business in Portugal, start a coffee shop, become an agriculture. That's fine too.
If I'd like to just add one thing is, the companies that I work with that come into the States from Portugal, one of the big focal points I try to make them understand is that they have to look at, the United States considers startups as great economic development in every city, where that's not looked upon here that way. I mean, it's starting to kind of show up in conversation, but
we talk about it.
You talk a lot about it, okay? But it hasn't, they don't have a track record on that. We do. We can see the startups in Canada, the exact same thing. Startups are a huge part of economic development in the United States. And that's the pitch that has to be included in their, when they go to the US market. And they have to learn that here before going there. Because once they get there, they crawl back in. I'm Luso-American, so I know how to think this way, and I also know the American way because I worked for 44 years there. What we can see there is that we look at companies from Portugal that come in. The talent's there, they have the product, they just are afraid of it. The magnitude, that. And so when I tell them is that you go in, we're going to go talk to economic development, and they're like, why? And you have to explain why not? All right. So I think that's the mentality focus. That has to be taught, though, in the universities. Okay? That's what you have to take it, the teoria à prática, from theory to practice. You can't just go in theory to the United States. It will not work. So.
Well, I'm not as adamant as you in terms of the need to. I think companies can succeed without going to the US market. OutSystems is actually an example. We have a lot of success in Europe and in APAC. I think it's more about what the goal of the company that you are creating is. And for instance, for OutSystems, what the goal that we have is to allow every company to innovate through software, and for that we need the US market. So that's why we go there, and that's our motivation. And in terms of preparation of the company, I think it needs to align with the vision for sure, but also there needs to be a willingness to invest. It needs to be a serious thing. So I gave the example of OutSystems. We send the guy with the car keys. That's not the way to do it. Because there is a lot of competition for attention in the US. So the big challenge is getting noticed. And that's a big part of it, is trying to get your brand and trying to get your product. Because even if you are solving something that you see it's going to be life-changing for people, it doesn't mean that other people see it that way. So I think that's one of the biggest challenges, and companies need to be willing and available and have the resources to go there, experiment, and make sure they do get that attention. Because when they do, the rewards are amazing. But there's the, how do you say, caminho das pedras? There's a rough path to go through until you achieve that spot.
So I agree with the fact that there's obviously, it's possible for you to build a company in Portugal that is extremely successful. That's fine. Sword Health is a great example of actually a Portuguese company that is actually built in Portugal, obviously sells to the US market primarily, but that has become very big. The question is, how much big would OutSystems be if you and Paulo were there? And I think it would actually be a seriously much larger company. So you're fighting when you're coming out of Portugal, when you're headquartered in Portugal, when you're coming from Europe, you are fighting with both of your arms tied behind your back. So you're going to market with both of your arms. You can't use your arms, you can only use your legs. How are you going to win anything? Can't win anything. You have to be in the market, you have to have the culture, you have to be closer to your clients. And so it is not the fact that I'm not proving impossibility. It is possible. It's just so much harder that why would you do it to yourself? I could also take a cold shower every morning, but let me tell you, it's much easier to actually take a warm shower, right? So OutSystems would be 10 times larger if they had been in the US. I know that with a very high conviction.
It would be a very different company, that's for sure. That's for sure.
Okay, thank you. We only have 1 minute left. I would like to take that minute to speak about a little bit more about ICEP and what we can do for the companies. So we have a team at ICEP, at the Internationalization Department, dedicated specifically to startups. So we address the problems and the needs of the startups when going abroad. So I usually say that you should reach out to us if you are a startup, if you want to expand to other markets. We are all over the world, and our delegations, they have a lot of experience supporting the companies in those markets, producing a list of potential customers, having gathered information about the specific sector that is interesting to you. We didn't use to have a team specially dedicated to startups, but we understood that the startup ecosystem in Portugal is really strong, and we had to adapt. And so that's why we built that team. I'm responsible for that team, and all the initiatives that we do from Portugal to other countries with startups go through my team. We usually do this in partnership with Startup Portugal, with the incubators that are present here, but always with the same goal, to help to support our companies expanding to other markets. So I don't think we have more time.
Zero.
Okay, there we go,
Zero.
perfect.
There we go, perfect.